1938 began Roosevelt's awareness of the need for gathering foreign intelligence. This awareness resulted in the formation of the Office of the Coordinator of Information, in which FDR appointed William Donovan as the head. General Walter Bedell Smith, an Army officer, saw the potential of the COI and offered to take it to the military to develop it further. It later developed into the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS, and became more efficient. The armed services persuaded the COI in September of 1941 to accept the small undercover intelligence branches. Donovan recruited Americans who traveled abroad or studied world affairs to work for him. The OSS hired an ex-con artist, Jim, to do the signatures of Adolf Hitler, Heinrich Himmler, Benito Mussolini, and other U.S. enemies flawlessly. The major departments within the OSS were research and analysis, research and development, morale or operations, maritime units, counter-espionage, special operations, and operational groups. The OSS actually began its work in Washington, D.C. in March of 1942 with the approval of President Franklin Roosevelt. Donovan had his agents break into several foreign embassies in Washington. The primary targets were Spain, which was neutral, and the United States wanted to ensure that they would stay that way, and Vichy France, the semi-independent German puppet government, still officially in control of southern France. The OSS was praised for its contribution to the success of the Allied invasion of North Africa and Operation Torch. They also had people permanently residing abroad, such as Allen Dulles. He ran their main efforts directly against Germany for most of the war. His contact, Colby, helped expose a major leak at the British Embassy in Ankara, Turkey. In January of 1944, a German agent copied a document in which he uncovered the word overlord, which was the code word for the Allied invasion of northern France. It was considered the most secret word in the European theater. Some of their other efforts included sending operatives into occupied France throughout most of the war to help resistance fighters engage in sabotage and to gather information. They also helped the French networks that smuggled downed Allied pilots out of France, and the efforts picked up in the weeks leading up to D-Day, the invasion of Normandy, in northern France. The OSS played an even more significant role in the August invasion of southern France. The French resistance, aided by the OSS, actually struck the first blow. In 1945 to 1949, there were 12 trials in Nuremberg. The most attention was focused on the first trial of 21 major war criminals, which were major members of the Nazi Party. Several Nazi leaders escaped trial and punishment. This included Adolf Hitler, who shot himself in a bunker 20 feet below the Berlin sewer system. Soon after, Heinrich Himmler took a cyanide crystal and killed himself as well. Eventually, they would attain 21 major Nazi figures. Nuremberg was one of the few cities with an available courthouse. Fittingly, it was the site of some of Hitler's biggest rallies. It was also in Nuremberg that Nazi leaders created the Nuremberg Laws, stripping Jews of their property and basic rights. All defendants were being charged with at least 2 of the 4 counts, some even with all 4. Count 1 addressed crimes committed before the war began. Count 2 addressed the undertaking of war in violation of international treaties and assurances. Count 3 addressed more traditional violations of the laws of war, such as the killing or mistreatment of prisoners of war and the use of outlawed weapons. Count 4 addressed crimes committed against Jews, ethnic minorities, the physically and mentally disabled, civilians in occupied countries, and other persons. On December 18th, the prosecution began introducing evidence to establish the criminality of the Nazi Party leadership. In January, there were a series of testimonies from surviving concentration camp victims. One particular victim gave the horrifying account of awakening one night to horrible screams, only to figure out the following morning that those screams belonged to children being thrown into furnaces alive because the Nazis had run out of gas for the chambers. Once Hermann Goering came to the stand, he proved himself to be what people described as a brain without a conscience. During the next few months, more defendants went to the stand, trying to shed positive light on what they had done. Some even said they had no idea that the concentration camps existed. This included Joachim von Ribbentrop. Suspiciously, he had multiple houses near multiple camps. As June of 1946 came to an end, the last of the 21 defendants completed their testimony. There were 2 more Nazis that escaped the trial. They were Martin Bormann, Hitler's private secretary who transmitted his most barbaric orders, was missing and never attended the trial, as well as Joseph Goebbels, who had died. The verdicts were given on October 1st of 1946. Goering, along with 10 others, was sentenced to death by hanging. Life sentences were given to 3. 2 received a 20-year sentence, 1 a 15-year sentence, and another a 10-year sentence. The trial had lasted 315 days. On October 15th, the day before the scheduled executions, Goering left a note saying he refused to be disgraced with death by hanging, saying he felt no moral obligation to submit to his enemy's punishment and took a cyanide pill to kill himself. The rest of the defendants were hanged starting at 1:11 the next morning. The Nuremberg trials were the world's attempt to bring justice to the enemies of the human race. Although most of them got what they deserved, some acted on their own terms. Thank you for tuning in tonight to listen to this special on World War II. This is 1027. Have a good night.